Biden, you might remember that he's made these Biden mandates, the one saying that companies with over 100 employees have to get their employees vaccinated. Well, folks, that was blocked by I believe, Fifth Circuit court. Biden's now telling businesses to bypass the courts and do it anyway. The legalities of which are questionable and are probably not going to bode well as this continues going through the court system, because at that point, if you're given a temporary injunction by a court where you have to not do something for a little bit, you're given a temporary injunction and gets blocked, and you just defy the court. I mean, they can hold you, and if you or I were to do that, they would hold us in contempt. So it says this: White House, and this is CNBC, it says White House tells businesses to proceed with vaccine mandate despite court-ordered pause. The White House is going against the orders of the court. It says this. It says the White House on Monday said businesses should move forward with President Joe Biden's vaccine and testing requirements for private businesses despite a federal appeals court ordering a temporary halt to the rules. And it says this is according to White House Deputy Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre telling reporters during a briefing. She said, people should not wait. They should continue to move forward and make sure they're getting their workplace vaccinated. Now, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, considered one of the most conservative, this is at CNBC claiming this, considered one of the most conservative appellate courts in the country, halted the requirements Saturday pending review, writing that, quote, the petitions give cause to believe there are grave statutory and constitutional issues of the mandate. Here you have the federal government, the executive branch in this case, going against a court order. Now, the implications of this are kind of, frankly, terrifying. The implications of this are essentially then it's working as a essentially extra legal program. At this point, if the court has ordered, a court has ordered them to not move forward with this, they put a temporary injunction on it. If the court has ordered this and they do it anyway, it is then an extra legal program, meaning businesses that do this are also violating an order from the court, meaning the operations are illegal, technically. And we'll see what the implications of that are, folks, that if your business, if you have over 100 employees and the court has ordered it to not do so, does it anyways, they are violating the law. Possibly, it seems. Now, the unfortunate reality with this, even as you can see it between the words in the CNBC article, right? They say the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, considered one of the most conservative appellate courts in the country. That's, of course, a indirect jab. So, they do this a lot, suggesting that by nature of being conservative, this is the implications. You get further into the articles and a lot of the media, that by the very nature of being more conservative leaning, i.e., believing in the Constitution, not believing it's a living document, which the Democrat ones tend to more hold, that by the very nature of its political leanings, it should just be kind of discredited. What happens then if you begin discrediting the courts based on legal stances? Well, the justice system begins to collapse, and then you, of course, get extra legal operations taking place. Now, this also does clear the way for people to sue their businesses. This also clears the way that if you get fired or, indefinite unpaid leave for not getting the vaccine, or even if you've had it and you just don't want to show them the documents, you have a very strong case against them. And you have a very strong case against them, noting, in addition to all the other things, that they're going against court orders by even moving forward with it. Frankly, I think this is not a smart move. This is my analysis. I don't think this is a smart move for the Biden administration, because once you start opposing the courts, judges might not like that. If you begin overturning the powers of the judges themselves and undermining the authority of our entire legal system in order to push forward a politicized agenda, you begin getting into dangerous territory that, whether right or left, I doubt many judges would like to see happen, because that's their authority. And if you do that and things do go to court, they might be more likely to rule against you if you've been going against their orders. It's not a good way to get on the favorable terms with a judge. Violating judges' orders is typically not a good way to get on their good side. So, the entire foundation of this argument around forced, vaccinations, the idea that, yeah, you can make your own health decisions, but if you choose to not get vaccinated, you might actually be harming other people. You might be putting other people at risk. Turns out that whole narrative is based on nothing. Well, specifically with people who've already had the virus. So the CDC itself, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, was questioned about whether or not they have evidence, whether they can show evidence that people who have natural immunity to the virus can transmit it to people who've had the vaccine. They have no evidence. Epic Times, we even called them to check. Folks, they have no evidence. And the story's been making some rounds. The implications of this basically is that you have mandates based on nothing. CDC is now admitting it has no record of natural immunity transmitting COVID-19. If you have natural immunity, in other words, if you have had the virus, the CDC has no evidence whatsoever, based on its own admissions, has no evidence that you pose a risk to your fellow colleagues, that there's any case at all of someone who has natural immunity transmitting the virus to another person. There's no evidence for that, which is the basis, again, of that mandate. Now, it says here, I'll go over this brief, then we'll go into some questions. It says here, the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, says it has no record of people who are naturally immune transmitting the virus that causes the COVID-19. Now, a bit further in, it says this, that Aaron Siri, a lawyer who sought the records on behalf of the network, this is another story, said in a blog post this, quote, "You would assume that if the CDC was going to crush the civil and individual rights of those with natural immunity by having them expelled from school, fired from their jobs, separated from the military, and worse, the CDC would have proof of at least one instance of an unvaccinated, naturally immune individual transmitting the COVID-19 virus to another individual. If you thought this, you would be wrong." In other words, you'd be wrong because the CDC has no proof.